Welcome back to Change Your Life. Today, we're diving into the fascinating world of Jefferson nickel value coins, exploring their iconic design, hidden treasures, and shocking history as we reveal the top 3 most valuable and ultra-rare U.S. nickels. The coins featured in this video include 1991 Jefferson Nickel, D Mint, Denver. 2003 Jefferson Nickel, D Mint, Denver. 1976 Jefferson Nickel, No Mint Mark, Philadelphia. These coins are struck in copper-nickel composition and feature the classic Monticello reverse design, one of the most recognizable images in American coinage. At first glance, these nickels may appear dirty, worn, and heavily circulated, just ordinary pocket change. But don't be fooled. Certain rare mint errors, varieties, and high-grade examples have turned some of these seemingly common coins into treasures worth thousands, and in rare cases, even millions, of dollars today. Money bag. So before you spend that old nickel sitting in your pocket or coin jar, stick around, because you might be holding a hidden fortune in your hands. Backhand index pointing right first up. Coin number 1. The 1991 D. Jefferson Nickel. At first glance, it's just 5 cents. Small. Silver-colored. Ordinary. It passes through hands every single day without a second thought. But sometimes the most common coins hide the most interesting stories, not because they were born rare, but because time, condition, and tiny differences can change everything. In 1991, the United States was deep into the modern era of coin production. Millions upon millions of nickels were struck that year, including those bearing the D Mint mark from the United States Mint facility in Denver Mint. The small D beneath the date quietly tells you where it was made. No flashy symbol. Just one letter. The design itself had already become iconic. On the front, the familiar portrait of Thomas Jefferson. Calm. Composed. Historic. On the reverse, Monticello, Jefferson's Virginia estate, rendered in clean architectural lines. For decades, that building stood proudly on the back of the nickel, a symbol of American heritage. The coin is made of copper nickel, not silver. Not gold. No precious metal hidden inside. Just a layered composition designed for durability. It was built to survive circulation. And survive it did. In 1991, these coins were everywhere. Grocery stores. Gas stations. Vending machines. Arcade games. They weren't saved. They weren't admired. They were spent. And that is important. Because when something is produced in huge numbers and used heavily, condition becomes the dividing line between ordinary and desirable. Today, most 1991 D. Jefferson nickels are dirty, worn, heavily circulated. The steps of Monticello are flattened. The fields are scratched. Jefferson's hair details are softened. Edges dulled. They look tired. Forgotten. Almost invisible. And in that state, they are generally worth face value. Let's be clear. A worn 1991 D nickel will not make someone a billionaire overnight. Viral internet stories often exaggerate coin values for dramatic effect. The real coin market works on verified rarity, demand, and condition, not fantasy. But here's where it becomes interesting. Condition rarity. A 1991 D nickel in exceptionally high grade, with sharp strike, strong luster, minimal contact marks, is far harder to find than people think. Most coins were used. Very few were preserved perfectly. And collectors pay attention to preservation. One key detail serious collectors examine is the full steps on Monticello. On high-quality strikes, the steps beneath the building appear sharply defined and fully separated. In circulation coins, those steps are often weak or worn away. But when a coin shows strong, uninterrupted steps and remains in pristine condition, it becomes much more desirable. That's the difference between common and collectible. Not the date alone. Not the mint mark alone. But the combination of strike quality and preservation. Then there's the world of minting anomalies. Slight off-center strikes. Minor die cracks. Subtle doubling in letters or numbers. These are not everyday occurrences, and they must be verified carefully. But when genuine, they transform an ordinary 5-cent coin into something collectors actively pursue. Collectors don't chase face value. They chase scarcity within abundance. The 1991 Jefferson Nickel represents a time before digital payments dominated daily life. It jingled in pockets. It dropped into payphones. It powered arcade machines. It was physical money in a tactile economy. And now, decades later, most of them are worn down. But a few survived untouched. Stored in rolls. Forgotten in drawers. Preserved by accident. Those survivors, brilliant, sharply struck examples, can sell for meaningful premiums in certified high grades. Not millions in normal condition. But strong prices relative to 5 cents, especially if graded at the top end of the scale. That's the reality. And the reality is more powerful than fantasy. Because it teaches something important. The power of coin collecting is not in believing every dramatic headline. It's in learning what actually creates value: condition, certification, scarcity at high grade, and verified demand. The 1991 Jefferson Nickel is not rare by mintage. It was never meant to be rare. But in perfect condition, with full detail and strong eye appeal, it becomes far less common than people assume. Imagine opening an old bankroll from 1991. Inside, untouched nickels still glowing with original luster. Monticello sharp. Jefferson crisp. The D-mint mark clear and clean. That moment sparks possibility. Not because it guarantees unimaginable millions, but because knowledge turns ordinary coins into informed opportunities. And sometimes, that 5-cent piece sitting unnoticed in a drawer isn't just change. It's a reminder that value hides in condition, in detail, in patience. The 1991 Jefferson Nickel will not make someone rich overnight in worn condition. But in exceptional preservation, or with a verified mint error, it can be worth far more than its tiny denomination suggests. And that's the real collector's secret. Small coin. Big history. Hidden potential, but only for those who know what to look for. The 2003 Jefferson Nickel. At first glance, it feels too new to matter. Too common. Too ordinary. A small 5-cent coin that most people wouldn't bend down to pick up. But history has a quiet way of hiding importance inside the coins we overlook the most. In 2003, the United States Mint was producing millions of nickels for everyday commerce. Among them were those struck at the Denver Mint, marked with the small but significant D beneath the date. That tiny letter is more than decoration. It is a signature. A birthplace. The design that year still carried the classic look that Americans had known for decades. On the obverse, Thomas Jefferson's portrait, steady, thoughtful, timeless. On the reverse, Monticello, his historic Virginia home, standing strong in detailed engraving. The steps, the columns, the symmetry. Clean lines. Structured beauty. The composition was standard copper nickel clad. Not silver. Not gold. Just durable metal made to survive vending machines, gas stations, and pockets across the country. And survive it did. In 2003, these coins were everywhere. They paid for coffee. They rattled in car cup holders. They dropped into laundromats. They were never treated as special. And that's what makes the story interesting. Because when something is made in huge numbers and treated casually, the majority become worn. Scratched. Dull. Heavily circulated. The fine hair details on Jefferson soften. The steps on Monticello blur. The surfaces lose their mint shine. Most 2003 Jefferson Nickels today are exactly that, ordinary and worn. In that condition, they are worth face value. 5 cents. No hidden treasure. No overnight billionaire story. Let's pause here and be honest. A dirty, heavily circulated 2003D nickel will not be worth millions of dollars. Viral claims online often exaggerate modern coin values. Real coin markets are built on condition rarity, grading, and verified demand, not fantasy headlines. But here's where the collector world shifts the perspective. Condition changes everything. While millions were struck, very few survive in perfect, high-grade condition. Modern coins often suffer from heavy contact marks during mass production and transport. Bags of coins collide. Surfaces scrape. Even before circulation, damage can occur. That means finding a 2003D nickel with blazing original luster, razor-sharp details, and minimal contact marks is harder than people assume. Collectors pay attention to something very specific on Jefferson Nickels, the full steps of Monticello. Those small horizontal lines beneath the building must be sharply separated and complete. In many coins, the strike is weak or the steps are partially blended. But when a coin shows strong, uninterrupted full steps and remains in exceptional condition, its desirability increases dramatically. That's the real collector's secret. Not the date alone. Not just a mint mark. But the combination of strike quality and preservation. Then there's another layer, mint errors. Modern coin production still carries risks of small irregularities. Off-center strikes. Die cracks. Die chips. Minor doubling in lettering. These are not common in dramatic form, but when authentic and verified, they can turn a simple 5-cent coin into a collectible conversation piece. Collectors chase uniqueness inside mass production. They look for the one coin that stands out among millions. And here's something else powerful about the 2003D nickel. It was struck just before a major design change. In 2004 and 2005, the Jefferson Nickel underwent temporary redesigns celebrating the Louisiana Purchase bicentennial. That means 2003 represents the final full year of the long-standing classic Monticello reverse before the transition began. Sometimes the last of an era of coins gain subtle historical interest over time. They mark the closing chapter of a design that lasted generations. Imagine opening an old roll of 2003D nickels today. Fresh. Untouched. Still shining. The fields reflective. Jefferson crisp. Monticello sharp with strong full steps. That moment creates possibility. Not because it guarantees unimaginable millions, but because a 5-cent coin in superb condition can be worth far more than 5 cents in the collector marketplace, especially when professionally graded at the highest levels. And that's the difference between hype and knowledge. Hype says every old coin is a treasure. Knowledge says rarity within condition is where value lives. The 2003D Jefferson Nickel will not make someone a billionaire overnight in worn condition. But a top-grade example, certified and preserved perfectly, can command serious premiums compared to its face value. Small coin. Modern year. Hidden potential, but only under the right circumstances. Sometimes value doesn't scream. It whispers. It waits inside detail, inside condition, inside patience. And the person who understands that is the one who truly sees what others miss. The 1976 Jefferson Nickel with no mint mark. At first glance, it looks completely ordinary. Just 5 cents. Just another coin with Thomas Jefferson on the front and Monticello on the back. But 1976 was not just any year. It was America's bicentennial year, 200 years since independence. While quarters and half dollars received special designs, the nickel kept its classic look. Quiet. Unchanged. Almost overlooked. And sometimes, overlooked coins carry the most interesting stories. The 1976 nickel without a mint mark was struck at the United States Mint facility in Philadelphia Mint. During that era, Philadelphia coins typically did not carry a mint mark. So when you see a 1976 nickel with no letter under the date, that blank space tells you its origin. Millions were produced. They flooded into circulation. They moved through gas stations, grocery stores, arcades, vending machines. They paid for phone calls. They bought candy. They were handled daily without a second thought. The coin itself is made of copper nickel clad. No silver. No gold. Just durable layered metal built to survive heavy use. And survive it did. Most 1976 nickels today are worn smooth. Jefferson's hair details faded. Monticello's steps flattened. Surfaces scratched and dull. In heavily circulated condition, the vast majority are worth face value. Let's be clear. A dirty, worn 1976 Jefferson nickel without a mint mark will not be worth millions of dollars. It will not make someone a billionaire overnight. Viral headlines often exaggerate modern coin values. Real coin markets operate on condition rarity, collector demand, and verified grading, not fantasy stories. But here's where the collector world changes the conversation. Condition rarity. When millions of coins are produced and heavily circulated, truly high-grade examples become surprisingly scarce. Most were used. Very few were preserved perfectly. And collectors don't just care about the date, they care about how well the coin survived. One of the most important details on Jefferson Nickels is the quality of the strike on Monticello. Collectors look for full steps, clearly separated horizontal lines beneath the building. On many coins, those steps are weak or blended together due to strike softness or wear. But when a 1976 nickel shows sharp, uninterrupted full steps and remains in near-perfect condition, its desirability increases significantly. That's where value can rise. Not because 1976 is rare by mintage, but because high-grade survivors are far less common than people assume. There is also the possibility of minting anomalies. Slight off-center strikes. Die cracks forming thin raised lines. Minor doubling in lettering. These are not everyday finds, but when authentic and certified, they can transform an ordinary 5-cent coin into something collectors actively pursue. Collectors chase the unusual. They chase the best examples. They chase the coin that stands above the rest. And there's another layer to 1976. It was the bicentennial year. While the nickel didn't receive a commemorative redesign like the quarter or half dollar, it still circulated during a historic moment in American culture. That connection to 1976 gives it subtle historical significance. It was part of the everyday economy during a year filled with national celebration. Imagine opening an old coin jar and finding a 1976 nickel. Dark. Scratched. Worn. It may seem worthless. But imagine instead discovering one that still glows with original mint luster. Sharp details. Clean surfaces. Strong full steps. That's when the ordinary begins to look different. Not fantasy different. Real collector different. A top-grade 1976 Jefferson nickel, especially one professionally graded at the highest levels, can sell for strong premiums compared to its 5-cent face value. Not millions in normal condition, but meaningful money for the right quality. That's the real secret. The power isn't in hype. It's in knowledge. The power isn't in every coin being a treasure. It's in recognizing when one coin stands above millions of others. The 1976 no-mint mark Jefferson nickel teaches an important lesson. Even a common coin from a common year can become desirable if preserved exceptionally well. Rarity doesn't always come from low production numbers. Sometimes it comes from survival. Small coin. Historic year. Hidden potential, but only for those who know what to look for. And that is where true collector value begins.